Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and this is the first in a special series of episodes. Why special? Because it's October! This is
Yay.
the first one of October. It's October 1st as we record this. This will begin up today. This starts the Octoberthon, in which we do at least 4 episodes a week until the end of the month, possibly more, and we've already got a couple of bonuses already kind of swirling in our heads. But yes, this is a big thing. We did this last year, although I think we're going to top our overall number this year, if I remember correctly. But we'll see. So we got a variety of things. We got some big classics coming throughout the month. We're starting with a new release. Actually, we're starting with Gerald's Game, which is a new Netflix original film. It's based on a Stephen King book, directed by Mike Flanagan. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we get to that, though, I do want to. Usually, I save the promotion stuff till the end, the plugs, and I will, for the most part. I'm not going to plug everything here, but we did just start something new on our Patreon, which I think is worth kind of celebrating and announcing, because we timed it for October. So now on Patreon, we do audio commentary tracks for movies, and there's going to be 2 a month. There's going to be one that's a group commentary with me and Tim and possibly Matt. And then the other one's just going to be me on my own, and I will. That one's more focused and more kind of like something I love. The other one with the group of us is probably going to be a bad movie that we're making fun of, and that kind of thing. And it's just for a bit of fun. But so this is a new tier on Patreon. It's the $8 tier. However, the first commentaries this month for October that are already up, you can go and check out them on patreon.com/MaileFuzzTV right now. They're free. The first months are free. You don't have to be on a tier. You can go and check them out and see if you like the idea. But I my solo commentary for October was Halloween, so I went straight to the classics. And then the group one that me, Tim, and Matt did was for Darkness Falls, which is a really forgettable at best, terrible at worst movie from 2003, from the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, which we just did in Screams a few weeks ago. So. Yeah, so that's the thing.
Yeah, the commentary was pretty fun, though. I definitely recommend people checking out if they have the time, if they're able to.
It was a train wreck. Maybe a glorious train wreck, but it was a train wreck. I'm okay admitting that.
But yeah, it was fun, and hopefully look forward to doing some more in the future.
Well, no, hopefully we are doing more in the future. we're doing one group one a month.
We'll see.
No, we'll see. It's confirmed. We're doing it. This was all this wishy-washy nonsense, Tim. Snap out of it, man. Alright, let's talk about weird sex things. So, Gerald's Game is like I said, based on a Stephen King book. We will start spoiler-free. We'll go into spoilers about halfway through. We'll give you a warning before we do. And so let's kick off the festive season that is October. The Halloween season. With Gerald's Game. So, what is this about? This is about a sort of middle-aged, well, woman's middle-aged, the man's sort of approaching he's on that cusp of going into old age. Bruce Greenwood, who plays the husband, is 61, so, he's kind of on that cusp. He looks good for 61, he keeps in shape.
I would have thought like early 50s, but yeah.
Yeah. And Carla Gugino plays the wife. And they go to their vacation home to rekindle a romance. They've been having a rough time, so they go to play some kinky games to try and spruce the marriage up, spruce the love life up a little bit. And she gets handcuffed to the bed because he wants to be extra kinky. And then he has a heart attack and dies, and she is left chained to the bed with no way of contacting anyone for help. There's no neighbours nearby. There's no one who might find her. She is just there on her own until she either dies or somehow finds a way of getting out of the handcuffs. That's the movie. It's a very simple premise. She's on a bed. She can't get anything to eat or drink. She's just there. She's stuck. Tim.
Yeah.
I'll ask you the question. What did you think of Gerald's Game?
This movie was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I was actually pretty surprised. Like I thought it looked good, and I was excited for it. But when I watched, I was pretty blown away. It's a very simple premise, and I usually like these premises, but I feel like they don't really deliver very often. Like that stuff like Buried, or like, oh, like this whole movie takes place like in a coffin or on a ski lift or in an ATM and stuff. Like it always sounds like, oh, that could be interesting. And
In an
then
ATM?
yeah, there's a movie like that.
Inside an
Like
ATM?
yeah, like one of those like little ATMs you go into, like like a little glass
Oh, like a walk-in thing.
case. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Not the actual ATM itself, but
Yeah, I'm just thinking the one that's on the wall that you just go up to, and I'm like,
no,
how does it take place in an ATM?
no. There's like some that like you'll see like in a parking lot. It'll be like a little room that's kind of just like
okay,
that
sure.
thing. But I think the movie is just called ATM. And some of those, and some of those are okay. But I feel like it never, like they run out of steam pretty quickly. But I was really surprised at how much this movie finds to do, and how interesting and invested I really was. And it did some really cool and creepy stuff I wasn't expecting, and I was just tickled pink by it, I guess you would say.
Well, I was not necessarily prepared for the overwhelming positivity that came out of your mouth there.
And I also should say real quick, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I haven't read this book in particular. I actually might go back and read it now, but so I can't really say if it is a good adaptation or not. But I definitely could feel the kingness in it.
It was set in Maine. And that's Stephen King. That's what he does. He sets things in Maine. So
But there was a very, very, very awesome Dark Tower reference that made me very happy. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I liked it. I did not love it as much as you did, though. I'm not coming in with that brimming sort of ecstatic that nature about me. But I mean, I did like it though. I did. I think it's solid. It's funny because I think Mike Flanagan, who directed Hush, directed Oculus and Ouija: Rise of Evil last year, which is funny that he churned out another movie almost exactly 1 year since his last one came out. The guy's a workhorse. He gets through them. I think he's a very consistently good but not great director to me.
What's interesting about him, for me at least, is I feel like each movie of his I like a little bit more. Like, I think like some of the early ones I was like, all right, this is okay, and then the next one's like, oh, this is good, but there's still something missing that was keeping it from being like, okay, this is good, but I'm not like, oh my god, great. And this was the first one where I was like, yes, finally, like I love this.
I think I might like Hush a little bit more than this one.
Okay.
I think
Hush is really good. I wouldn't argue. But...
I mean, Hush was his best one, certainly at that point. Like, I think, and I like Hush more than Ouija, Rise of Evil, or Origin of Evil, I think it was called. I'm forgetting the name of it, but I think it does have some genuinely creepy moments, and I'll applaud it for the creepy moments just feeling creepy, and not doing the jump scare noise, not doing the this is meant to be the scary moment. It got incredibly tense at certain points, and it didn't go there straight away. For a while it was almost like a family drama. For a little bit, it was just this marital drama for X amount of the runtime, and then it started to get a bit more delirious, and it started to go down these paths, and she starts thinking about her past, and we get some information about her childhood and stuff that sort of feeds into the themes of the story, and why she is the way she is, and
I think those sections are like cut in pretty good, where you'll get like a little bit of drama or backstory, and then it'll cut to like the present or the real world, and then you get a little bit more of her current situation, and then it's a nice jumping back and forth.
Yeah, I honestly, my main criticism of it actually comes from the ending. If I'm going to criticize it, I think the final,
like the ending, like the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'll call it the epilogue.
Okay, yeah.
I'll call it the epilogue. Most of my problems with the movie come from there. Mainly, I feel like it turns into a giant dump of information at the end to explain things, and it took me out of the movie. Like, instead of revealing certain things in the story in an interesting way, it just dumped it all on me at the end after the fact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was very strange. I wouldn't say that I didn't like it, but it did really feel like out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And I was like, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, like I was on board with, this thing that you're kind of explaining. I didn't need an explanation for it, but I'm not necessarily mad at the explanation that was given.
yeah, because it also like narration came into it at the end, and like we had no narration for the whole movie. It felt like it shifted tones bizarrely, and I think I know what it was trying to do with that, and we'll talk about that in spoilers as to why thematically it makes sense to shift. But
Mhm.
it took me kind of out of the movie. It took me like it felt like the tone shifted. It felt like the style shifted, and then the final moment itself just felt just a bit on the cheesy side. And again, I actually appreciate what it's trying to do there. I think it just tonally did not work with the rest of the movie. So I'll talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah.
Uh, but
I agree with what you're saying. It didn't really affect my enjoyment that much. It is definitely odd though.
The performances are very good. I'll say that. Direction is very strong. Um, the like I say, the creepy moments all work really well. It does a good job of focusing. Like there's large periods of time and all you're seeing is her like on the bed, and I do think it very smartly like it'll draw your attention to the part that it wants you to for example when she's first being chained into the bed and the camera just focuses on her hand and her face is out of focus, but it's like this, even though it's not treating it with music or anything like that to make you go, oh, this is the big moment, this is where she's locked in, but the camera just subtly says this is a big deal, this moment, this is where she's locked in, and there was a lot of little things like that I felt helped tell its story,
Mm.
kind of thing. So
Yeah, I agree with that. There's some pretty good gore in it, surprisingly. Yeah, there's not like a ton of it, but the
yeah,
few like scenes that are there,
I don't think we
has
can
pretty
talk about
impressive
what they are
effect.
until spoilers because they're all full
Right. Yeah.
Spoilerville. But yeah, no, there is actually some impressive gore effects at one or two points. Yeah, I think honestly we'll probably dive into spoilers at this point. I feel like we can't really talk about anything else without.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about much else about the plot, like without really going into it.
Because even the most horror part of the story, we can't mention until spoilers.
Yeah.
Because like I say, it starts off just it's just because this could almost be just a survival movie. Like this could almost be the in the bed version of 127 days or hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, hours. That's the movie. It's almost could just be the bed version of that, where it's not really a horror movie. It's just about surviving and trying to last until you're found or get out or whatever. But instead, it does introduce these other ideas and elements throughout that it turns it more into a horror movie. So with that said, full spoilers for Gerald's game from this point on. So a big sort of mechanic in the movie is that once she's tied up and her husband's dead and he's on the floor, and I like that she can't really see his body on the floor. She just sees like the hand peeking out in the bottom. That she starts talking to an imaginary version of her husband who's walking around the room, and then eventually an imaginary version of herself as well. Now, obviously, it's all in her head. These are just her own subconscious talking back to her, which is one of the things I liked is that she constantly figured things out because it was like everything she figures out is knowledge that she would have. It's like the fake version of her or the fake version of him are reminding her of something that she already knows. Like there's the glass of water on the shelf above so she can get a drink, or things like that, or bringing up memories that assist her in that moment.
Mhm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while. I guess about a year or so since we watched it. But wasn't there a little bit of a similar mechanic in Hush?
Um,
Towards the end, doesn't the character talk about how like she kind of writes her own story and figures stuff out?
yeah, it wasn't the exact same, but yeah, there was some thematic sort of similarities there. Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. Uh, but so this goes on, but and there's this stray dog that wanders in and starts eating the husband, and they set up the dog as this entity that's around, and the door's open so it can get in, and and the first time you hear the door open, you think, oh, who's coming in the house? Who's coming in the house? And you quickly sort of guess it's probably the dog, but it is very tense. That's probably the first true moment of tension in the movie, is like hearing something coming towards the room, and who is it? What is it? But so I think there's two main elements to tackle here. There's the horror element, and then there's the flashbacks and the sort of the character's past to really delve into. The horror element is that there's what's he credited as? The Moonlight Man. That's what he's credited as. Who is played by the giant from Twin Peaks. Who even with all the makeup, I recognized it was him.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's cool. Oh well, actually, I didn't watch Twin Peaks, so I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, you've seen some of the original show. You've definitely seen him.
Oh, from the original?
Yeah. He
okay.
Because you started season 2, he appears to Cooper and gives him some clues.
Okay.
Who had a bow tie. But anyway, so he's got makeup on. He's this deformed figure who shows up, and the first time you see him is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
He's just standing there in the darkness in the corner of the room, and you can't quite see that there's a person there at first, and then you just kind of notice it, and then she notices and she gets scared, and then he's just standing there watching. It's like proper good creepy stuff.
Yeah, and he looks really creepy. They mention he has I forget what it's called, but some type of disease that kind of like enlarges certain portions of your body. So he's already like a very tall person, but he kind of has this like weird, larger than normal like face and hands. And then he's just kind of dressed up like a really weird like specter or
and
something.
He's got this bag with him that's got various jewelry and bones in it. And so the movie, like, you think, okay, this is just in her head, this is someone else who's not real because she's been seeing things. But then, of course, the fake husband in her head the next day says, what about that footprint in the blood? And you sort of like, okay, that's either real or it's not. It could just be a smear that happens to look, because it's not like a perfect footprint, it's just kind of roughly in the shape of a foot. And the movie plays with this idea that, is he there or isn't he? And she sees him more. And, I took him as a manifestation of all of the darkness, all of our fears. This was like this personification of it. And you see him more as the movie goes on, and he pops up, especially when she eventually does escape, and he pops up in the back seat, and she gives him the ring as she leaves the house and stuff like that. And he's always very creepy. And I'm not against, because it turns out after the fact that he was real, that he was this guy who was like digging up graves and killing people and across the state. And I'm okay with that idea, but I really hate how it's revealed.
Okay.
Because had it been revealed in like the scene in the bedroom at some point, like had she like realized Willie was there in like a moment where it was visual, where the character realizes that she's in trouble, I would have that'd have been exciting, that'd have been fascinating. Instead, she's writing this letter to her younger self with this sort of exercise after the fact, and it's this narration. Oh, there was this murderer digging up bodies throughout the state, and it felt so clunky, and I was like, this is probably the least interesting way to tell me that this was a real character.
They probably could have done something more interesting with it. It didn't really bother me that much. Like you mentioned before, it is a definite shift in the storytelling.
I think it bothered me that it was real because that's how they revealed it. I think I would have been fine with them being real if they'd revealed it in a more interesting way, but because they did it like that, I'm like, oh right, I thought it was just like a figment of her psychosis because she was so screwed up. And
especially since he is such this weird, creepy, enigmatic figure that you're guessing for so much of the movie. It doesn't it would lend itself more to having a more interesting reveal. But I can't really think of anything off the top of my head what would have been a better way.
I think something where she was still in the presence of him, where she realized, oh, this isn't my imagination. This person is standing there. Like how you do it exactly, I don't know, but I think there had to be a more inventive way of doing it. Her just talking about reading it in newspapers after the fact, because at least, of course, the big final moment of the movie where she goes to the court when he's on trial, he's been caught, and she goes in, and it's confirmed that he was there because he sort of quotes something back to her that she said, and she just kind of she has this moment of defiance that says, oh, okay, I'm over this now, I'm not scared anymore. And she walks out, and she has a big moment where the eclipse is gone, and we'll talk about what the eclipse means in a minute or two. But I I don't know, like the final like epilogue just felt really. It just felt like out of a different movie to me. Like I felt like the tone just all went away, and all of a sudden it was this weird element. I don't know. It didn't sit with me at all.
It kind of feels more like the epilogue you would read in a book or something, as opposed to how you do it in a movie.
Yeah. I think it should have just left more to my imagination. It should have let me interpret it a little bit more, I think, rather than just spelling all of this out in this letter that she's narrating.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have that much of a problem with it. The one thing I would definitely agree with you on that you mentioned a little earlier, though, is the courtroom scene. While I did like it, it is pretty cheesy. Like, just like her barging in and everyone kind of turn around and be like, oh, like no one. I mean, I've never been to a criminal trial, but I feel like, yeah, people wouldn't let you just walk in and walk right up and then say something to the court.
If you shout something out like that, you'd be detained. You'd maybe get a warning first, but then you'd be detained for interrupting the court. Like, that's not okay. But they just kind of let her stand there and like talk to him for like a minute. It's weird. It feels kind of like that itself feels not real. And I get what it's doing. She's overcame all of her past self, and she's willing to accept what she's been through, and she's willing to like recover from it. And that's why the last shot is her putting on the sunglasses, and the sun's bright, and there's no eclipse. I do think the final shot's a little bit stilted. It's kind of weird. It's almost robotic the way she walks off at the end. But it's just, I don't know. I think the final 10 minutes just it took away the mystery of everything that was going on and just kind of spelled everything out too much. When I got that the Moonlight Man represented her darkness, and I got what she'd gone through and what she was fighting to overcome, and that she's got herself in this position because of like not willing to accept what's happened to her in her past and actually acknowledge it. Like up until this point in the movie, it was doing very well with all this stuff, and then the last 10 minutes just kind of like, now here's what's going on, everyone. Now, let me tell you everything through lots of exposition.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked that he was real, though. Like maybe it's because I'm a little interested in like true crime and stuff. So yeah, even hearing the little snippets of what this person is like really made me interested. And it's not like they spell everything about like, oh, he was, he grew up as a young boy and he, had this happen to him that made him go mad or anything.
I don't mean that. No, when I say they over-explain everything, they over-explain everything in the context of what it means in the main plot of the movie, where I don't think they need to do that. I think the movie, the ending really kind of soured me on a lot of it, because it just kind of like, it didn't let me just as a viewer take in what I'd experienced and like get to that point myself. It felt the need to beat me over the head with it, and it took me out of it, which is a shame, because I actually think up until that point, the Moonlight Man was my favourite part of the movie. I thought it was genuinely really creepy, and I thought every time he was in that room, every time he was hinted at, when he was in the back seat of the car towards the end, great stuff, all of it great. But I don't know, the ending kind of soured me on it a little bit.
And I think that's understandable. It didn't really have that effect on me, though. And yeah, I'm pretty cool with like, if anything, it kind of makes me like more interested, just kind of thinking like, ooh, like how did he, come across this like cabin, and like kind of like what were his thoughts, when he was like looking at her and everything. Like I think there was still a bit of mystery about him, and I get what you're saying about kind of being a weird out of nowhere info dump, but I don't know, maybe I was just so caught up in the story or something, it worked for me. I didn't mind it that much.
So the other big part of the movie that we've not talked about yet is her past, and obviously sex plays a big role in the movie in terms of its themes, and even sexual abuse specifically, because I think you get these flashbacks to when she was a kid and she was called Mouse by her father, and she hasn't like been called that now. You get, okay, right, this is going to a bad place. I feel like right away you're worried where it's going, and it happened during an eclipse. Why so the idea that this horrible thing happened to her during an eclipse, and in a weird way to her, the eclipse has never ended. Like, it's just the world's been dark ever since that moment, and she's never really recovered from it, which is kind of what the movie's about. It's about her kind of not getting over it. Like, that's not the phrase to use, but accepting that this happened and admitting that it happened, and then using it to, or not using it, but being able to actually recover from it rather than just bottling it up inside, which is what essentially happened. Her father masturbated with her on his lap, watching the eclipse. Very creepy scene, and the movie definitely was taking like a sort of turn there. I was like, oh, okay, this is where the movie's going. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of hints that sexually she has a lot of issues. Just from the being, I mean, not that everyone has to be comfortable with what her husband was, because her husband wanted to pretend that she was like screaming for help and stuff like that. Now that's not necessarily weird to say that you're not into that. That's fine, but it just obviously it makes a lot more sense once you learn. Okay, this is where her past has been. This is what she's went through, and it comes together in that way.
And I think like at one point the husband is, I forget if he's referring to himself as daddy or asking her to call him daddy, but like he's saying that at one point, and I think that might be the part that kind of like really sets her off, and wants her to to stop the role playing at that point.
Yeah, but, that really brings in. There's a lot of visual things as well, like the way she sets out the sort of the nightie at the start of the movie on the bed before she packs it is very similar to how our younger self, after she's went through the experience, sets that dress she was wearing on the bed. It's the exact same shot. And then after that as well, after she's talked with her father, and her father's basically convinced her to not speak about it, she lies back in the bed with her hands out, and it's the exact same pose of her on the bed with the chains. And it's kind of like, oh, she's actually been chained to the bed her whole life, metaphorically speaking. Like, so it does a lot of smart things like that. But it's really playing with all that stuff throughout the movie.
And obviously, this is kind of iffy territory when you're talking about this kind of stuff. But I thought the movie handled it pretty well. It didn't really feel exploitative. If anything, kind of by the end, kind of makes her feel like a strong character that's able to overcome this horrible thing.
Well, yeah, I think that's the core arc of the movie is her overcoming. She's been in denial and she sort of balled it up her whole life, and it's her accepting that she has to accept that it happened to move on from it. Like that has to be something she does to heal. She's not been able to heal because she's not let herself heal.
And just from a visual standpoint, the look of the eclipse was really captivating. I thought just this kind of like reddish like overcast screen just I thought looked really cool whenever they would kind of go back to that place or flashback.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of stuff as well about how she just traded her father for her husband. Like her husband, even though we never get the sense that he's as bad as her dad was, the idea that she married someone for the security rather than because she wanted a proper marriage, and it's like quite clear she never wanted kids, and maybe it's because she didn't want her kids to go, even the possibility that her kids could go through the horror of anything she went through. Cause especially you see it in her family life, like her mother is quite sort of bitter about her and how she has a better relationship with her father, at least before the incident, obviously. And just like you definitely get the sense that she never really wanted that for herself, because of what she went through. Because I think the idea of having her own kid would maybe remind her of what she went through. It would just remind her of childhood. It would remind her of that innocence, and the idea that one day it has to be taken away in some way. And for some people, the innocence going away is just a normal thing that happens in a more natural way. But in her case, it was this dramatic experience that this awful thing that she's always going to remember.
Yeah, and then you kind of see in the end that she starts working with kids, and I think like opens like a center for like abused children, and then now she's at a point where she feels comfortable with like protecting and interacting with kids and stuff.
Yeah, she says how she tells that story every day if she thinks it'll help anyone. Which I mean, I like the idea that it kind of that whole part falls into that epilogue problem I had, but it just it's kind of like a book where it feels like it has to give a coda to everything. And sometimes I like the idea of you leave it at a nice poignant moment, and you let the audience just think, oh, what did they do next? What because I think once you get the idea that she's overcame it, you don't really need anything that comes after. but instead it wants to have the multiple endings where it wraps everything up in a neat bow, kind of thing, and just a little bit too much for me in this case. But like I say, one of the things I really liked about the movie was how her and her husband that are talking to her in her head are constantly bringing up things that she knows, and that's why you can tell they're just in her head, because it's just information that she would have in some way. It's, oh, remember that time you cut your hand? You could probably get your hand out of those chains if you do that again. You've got access to the glass, you can do it. And it's probably the most shocking scene in the movie. I was not expecting it. I was not braced for this scene, because I thought, okay, she's going to cut her hand, it'll lube her wrist up a bit, and she'll maybe break her wrist and get it out. Instead, she has to pull her hand through, and it actually rips the skin up, and I believe the correct term for this is degloving your hand.
Really? Oh, I didn't know there was a term.
Where the skin, I mean, it doesn't completely come off, but it peels back so much. You see parts of the bone and the tendons and stuff, and then it snaps back when it comes out. It is revolting. Gore like this doesn't typically make me cringe, but this really did. This was...
Oh, I was squirming quite a bit during this scene.
This was brutal.
Oh, yeah, brutal. It's very like I was watching it and kind of kept expecting like, all right, she's gonna cut herself a little bit, then they'll cut to her face or something, but it's pretty like focused on the hand, and let's see, it seems like it lasted a while.
Yeah, it keeps getting back to it. You keep seeing it, and I love how she goes over. So this is when she gets out, obviously, and she goes over to the sink and she puts on a couple of little bandages, and I'm like, yeah, you need more than a couple of bandages, love. That's medical attention. And again, she goes out to the car, and you know that she's not been eating or drinking beyond a little bit for like 2.5 days at this point, and you're like, she should not be driving. She is not in no state to be behind a wheel. And sure enough, she's like dozing off the entire way, and she ends up crashing when the Moonlight Man sort of and I'm tempted I'm tempted to think that the Moonlight Man in the back seat was not real.
Fake.
Yeah, I feel like that one's probably just in her head, but I mean, I could be wrong there.
Yeah, that's the kind of the impression I got. And because I feel like even if he didn't like say anything that she was gonna crash the car anyway, it was just more like, oh, this is like a little last second hallucination or something before you do that. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense, and she's obviously sees the eclipse there as well before she crashes, and that's how she gets out. The other thing I was kind of like, why she goes to use the phone and the battery's dead, but I was like, surely there's like a plug or something somewhere. You were here for the weekend. Did you not bring a charger?
Yeah.
I actually
just charge it real quick and call instead.
I saw someone actually comment online that, I mean, admittedly, this didn't work when the book was written because it was 1992 when the book came out. But technically speaking, like her phone probably has Siri on it. Could she theoretically just go, Siri, 911, please, 911? Potential. I don't know. I've never actually used voice activation on my phone. I don't know if you still have to turn it on to, get it to work. But
I'm not 100% sure either. But
it's an amazing idea, all the same, that she could have just, remembered Surrey existed and just got out that way. But yeah, it's paced well. It's not too long or anything like that. For me, I think it's a really solid movie that is let down by the ending being a bit too overly sweet in Hollywood, I guess is maybe what I'd say. And it spells things out just a little bit too much for me, and that maybe drags it down a point. If when we get to ratings, that's kind of where I'll land on what rating I get to. But
yeah, that's fair.
But I think it's very solid. I think it's funny how Flanagan, Hush probably been his best film for me so far, but he's very much a man who consistently churns out a good 7. He likes a good 7.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, one thing I can definitely say is I don't think there's anything of his that I have hated.
Yeah.
It's always at the very least like okay to good territory.
It's kind of a shame though that these last 2 movies in a row now have both had endings that kind of summer the rest of the movie for me. Now, admittedly, I don't think this ending is as bad as Ouija Origin of Evil. That one nosedived for reasons kind of out with his control, but I don't know. I would have just liked a bit more mystery at the end. Didn't have to wrap everything up so clean and neat and over kind of explain where everything that happens afterwards. Like, for me, it just felt like such a tonal shift to the rest of the movie where, okay, I didn't need this to be so neat. Like, once you've shown me that she's gotten over it, she's fought through it, and she's come out on the other side, our story's done. Like, I get it. She's won. She's overcome the our past, and that's what the movie was about. And everything up until that point was pretty great, though. So, so with that said, I guess we're on ratings, Timmy.
Sure. I'm gonna give this a pretty high score. I don't want to go as high as a 9, but I did really like this a lot, so I think I'm gonna give it an 8.5 though. Still really good. This is definitely something I'm gonna watch again though. So who knows? Maybe might jump up a little bit in future rewatchings. But yeah, really great. Flew by. And again, I was just really impressed with. I love Stephen King, so I had a lot of hope for it. But when you hear that kind of premise of someone being trapped or chained or in this one kind of very like a solitary position, you kind of think like, oh, like what are they going to be able to do with that? And that's why I get excited with these a lot of time, because it's like, oh, how are you going to make that interesting? And I think a problem with a lot of the movies like that, I feel like don't end up being that interesting. But this was maybe the first one I can think of where I was like, wow, like they really, really were able to keep me invested. And but yeah, I was really, really, really happy with this.
You reminded me of a moment actually that made me laugh. No, it's not a funny movie, but there was one or two chuckle moments. Like when she gets the glass of water down and she goes to drink it, and like the fake husband laughs, and she's like, "What?" And then she goes to drink it, and she can't actually reach the glass. The hand doesn't come close enough. And he's like, "That's what."
But yeah, it was like that was even like a neat little interesting thing where she uses was it like the tag or something from her dress or whatever to kind of make like a makeshift straw.
Yeah.
And that she could drink from. But it's funny. This year we'd seen a lot of Stephen King adaptations and TV and in theaters and stuff. Well, it seems like a lot more than usual. And I wouldn't have pegged this one as being my favorite, but it was really, really good. I don't know if I liked it more than it, but probably pretty close though.
I think I do like it more. I like it more than this, and I think the reason why though, because I think the horror stuff in this is better than it. But I think I like the kids in it. Like I like the characters in it more than I do. I think here.
Yeah.
With that said, though, it's a very similar score. I gave it a 7.5. I think. This I'm giving a 7. I think it's good. I think there's a lot of good techniques and like direction and solid writing for the most part. The creepy moments with the Moonlight Man are fantastic. I just think it gets a bit too sentimental, and we have to wrap everything up in such a neat bow at the end. And it didn't sit with the rest of the movie for me. It took me out of it, and I was kind of looking at it going, "Oh, that's how you're doing this." Okay, and so for me that's where it lands, but it's still worth watching. Like very, very good stuff. Netflix are pumping out more original movies, and they're doing a pretty decent job. It's interesting because Hush, I don't know if it was officially a Netflix movie, but it went to Netflix pretty much everywhere right as soon as it came out. So they must like Mike Flanagan. So
I thought it was a Netflix movie. I could be wrong, but yeah, and I think they pretty regularly have his movies available to watch. I know I'm not sure about right now, but at least for a good time, like Oculus and I think his first movie is Absentia. I think that was on Netflix for quite a bit. So yeah, maybe they dig the Flanagan.
Yeah. So no, that has been Gerald's Game. So let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, we mentioned at the start of the show, of course, the commentary tracks, which are on patreon.com/milefuzztv. Like I said, the first 2 for this month are free, so everyone can go there. You have to go to Patreon to get them, that's where the files are, but they are free for everyone. And then starting with November's episodes, you have to sign up. But so yeah, there's going to be the regular monthly vote for a November bonus movie. We will get. I'll announce that in one of the next episodes, but that is coming, and of course we have winners of the previous votes for this month, which I won't reveal. I think we'll wait until we get to the episodes as they come out, because there's three. Of course, there's the public vote, and then there was the two Patreon votes, and we'll get to those throughout the month. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching and or listening. In fact, actually, that reminds me, I do have another announcement. Now, admittedly, it seems too good to be true, but we seem to have found a way to have an audio podcast feed for Screams After Midnight, and so you I don't know if it's been submitted to iTunes. I don't know if it's up there yet, but we do have an audio feed for Screams After Midnight. It's not up to date yet. I started uploading episodes from the start of 2017, and I'm about 30 episodes in. So hopefully I should be up to date to these new episodes going up in the audio feed by probably the next few days, maybe at the most a week.
Cool.
So there's audio downloads available of the episodes as well. But yeah, so thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Keep watching scary movies. It's the Octoberthon. Be happy. Goodbye.